Now, we are lucky enough to have Aurore Berger on the set with us. She worked for Alain Juppé's Conservative campaign and is now backing Emmanuel Macron's En Marche movement. I'm guessing some of your former colleagues might not be happy about that.
Well, I don't really care about if they're happy or not. I think yesterday was an historical moment for France. And as you say, the two main parties, Les Républicains, the right wing, and the Parti Socialiste for the left wing, just shown that they are over, and French people just told them that it's not the divide between left and right that is now relevant in France.
Now, you're probably like the holy grail for En Marche, because you're exactly what Macron wants to hold up to the French country and say, I can unite it. I can bring the right together. I can bring the left together. But the critics say he's only cherry-picking policy, the best from both, and that he's just a technocrat without a real heart in what he's doing. What do you say to that?
I think that the important divide is not anymore between right and left. So I'm not sure he wants to pick what is good on the right wing and what is good on the left wing. He wants to create something new. And I think yesterday was what French people just told the world. It's a really powerful and hopeful message. They told us and they told the world that we can have a liberal century that can shown that renewal and change is not from the populist side. And it's really important after the Brexit, after Trump, after also in France years of terrorist attacks, after unemployment. French people just have chosen yesterday optimism, have chosen Europe, and I think it's really the main, the important thing that we have to think about today.
And also on the set is our chief foreign editor, Robert Parsons. Rob, this was a historic result. We're talking about the polls, how there's a lot of circumspection ahead of it. But in the end, it was the top two who are leading the polls that are making it to round two.
Yeah, and congratulations to French pollsters. We've seen predictions in the United States and in the United Kingdom with Brexit, which were way off course. French pollsters have restored the reputation of pollsters globally, I think, with the accuracy of this. Now we enter into new territory, obviously, and a lot of concern is going to be about how this vote is going to pan out. At the moment, the pollsters are saying 60-40 in favour of Macron. It's a convincing victory, but it's alarming if they're correct. 40% of the French electorate ready to vote for an ultra-right leader like Marine Le Pen. That's pretty shocking for the future of French politics.
It is. And Aurore Berger, you come from the Conservative camp. We've heard voters, we saw them on French TV last night, saying that they didn't know who they would vote for in round two. Some of them saying they might not vote at all. Some of them saying they might vote for Marine Le Pen.
Well, of course, I'm worried about it. But François Fillon, who was the front runner for the Conservative Party, said yesterday that he wants French people to vote against Marine Le Pen and to vote in favor of Emmanuel Macron. So I hope that in the 15 coming days, we will convince them to come with us, because we want the liberal, the progressive, the Europe to win the election. And we want our project to win in 15 days.
All right. And things are getting crowded here on the set at France24. We can also now welcome Aymeric Merlot, a regional counsel for the National Front. We were just discussing there how the National Front might be getting some extra support from conservatives. What's the strategy going into round two for the party and Marine Le Pen?
Well, we'll go on talking to every French citizen. I mean, we made quite a great score. I mean, it's the first time that Marine Le Pen is qualified for the second tour in a French presidential election. So first, we're very happy, and now we are trying to gather all French citizens that really want to change this country, really change politics in this country, because actually in France we are facing big issues. Globalization is ruining lots of families, losing jobs as well for lots of people, and I think Marine Le Pen has got the solutions, whereas Emmanuel Macron is the candidate of the continuity. He doesn't want to change really something. Actually, I really believe that many people voted for him yesterday because the candidacy of François Fillon was totally impossible because of the affairs and his program, but they didn't know the program of Emmanuel Macron. And so what we're going to do during the 2 next weeks will be to show that this program is completely empty, that he has nothing to offer to French citizens, that there is only obviously the citizens that live in globalized cities, the biggest cities, Paris, Nantes, Angers, that really voted for him. But the problem is that the other citizens will be left aside if he is elected during 5 years. So I think Marine Le Pen now has a great chance.
I'd like to press you on one thing. You mentioned that a lot of candidates might not have known the program of Emmanuel Macron, but one thing that we saw this election, National Front scored very highly with young voters, right? And one of the one of the criticisms was that it no longer scores highly with old voters because they think of the far right under Jean-Marie Le Pen, and so these younger voters see a new National Front where they don't associate it with the sort of anti-immigration, anti-EU. Is that what we're seeing here? Is that maybe some of the younger voters might not have this familiarity with the National Front and not know its sort of dark past?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think Marine Le Pen's propositions are very clear. I think everybody knows them. But it's true that with retired people, we have quite a few problems, electoral problems, because first of maybe the history of the Front National, but also because of the habits of voting. And I guess François Fillon made great scores, actually, among retired people, because they voted their whole life for the right conservative party in France. And now we have to convince them during 2 weeks. And I think it's possible, because I received actually many calls of supporters of François Fillon that said to me, I will never vote for Emmanuel Macron. He was the François Hollande economic advisor during 5 years, and we've seen his results, and his results are bad. So I think we are a great hope for a lot of people now.
Aurore Berger, we're hearing that En Marche is vide, empty.
Well, I think if the French people just decided to put it and to put Emmanuel Macron as the front runner of the race, I think that because they know what he is and what is our project. We have a new divide here in France. It's open versus closed society, it's Europe versus nationalism. And I think in the 15 coming days, we will debate, of course, about these issues. And I want to debate about these issues because I don't want France to be closed society. And
it's nothing to do with closed society, this is caricatural.
No, it's not cultural, of course.
What is it close about? I mean, having a frontier is normal. It's the case of almost every country in the world. If you have a frontier,
of course, it's closed society. How will you deal with Europe, for instance? It's not a really clear message what Marine Le Pen wants to do with Europe. First, she wanted to leave Europe and to leave the European Union and to leave Euro. So, will she do it?
We can't leave Europe. Europe is a continent, okay? Obviously we have
will you leave the European Union and will you leave the Euro?
Is that we want it to change to be a nation-state union, like
you don't
United
want
Nations,
to leave European Union anymore.
Of Europe. Sorry?
You don't want to leave European Union anymore.
We always said that we wanted a nation-state build, a European Union.
Obviously, the message was not clear at all.
Yeah, I mean,
towards European
we've been working with.
Can I just ask just one question?
Yeah, sure.
If I may, on that, just for the sake of clarity. As I understand it, Marine Le Pen is saying that, yes, we will stay in the European Union as long as the European Union agrees to our terms.
Yeah,
if the European Union doesn't agree to our terms, it's goodbye.
But there are many countries in the European Union.
Yeah.
But it's totally correct, because we want to reform deeply on a nation state in the European Union. What we are criticizing is the federalization of the European Union. That is to say, all those, the European Commission, the European Parliament. I don't believe a Polish European member of Parliament.
She's a member of the European Parliament.
Agriculture, for instance. So we want to have a diplomatic permanent court in Europe, so that we could still work together. Obviously, the European Union helped us to work together during decades, but it's not working this way. So we hope that this experience of the European Union will help us to build another Europe, a nation-state built Europe, and many countries are actually agreeing with us.
You
I'm
didn't
thinking
answer
about
to...
all the Eastern Europe countries, European countries that are quite agreeing with us, and I think also Italy and Spain, if France is coming to the negotiation, they might agree as well. So
far-right movements in a number of EU countries might be agreeing with that position, but there's also a push from Brussels and from some of the more social democratic movements to bring together closer Europe, to have greater integration.
Yeah, but that's the dream we've been selling since decades now in France, and it's not working. I mean, see the results, especially, for instance, the most integrated policy, I guess, should be agriculture, and it's a disaster for French agriculture. Let's be honest now, we are ruining our peasants. I mean, they don't even earn enough money to live decently. They kill themselves nowadays in France. So should we caution this policy? Yes or not? I think yes. And the problem is Emmanuel Macron is nothing to do with questioning those policies. It's also the same thing with the open frontier Europe. I mean, we are facing very huge problems with immigration, for sure, and nothing is done at the level of Europe. We say, oh, we should protect our European frontier. It's never done because we can't rely on Greece to protect our European frontiers, and Greece doesn't have the financial measures to control the frontier. So there are many problems within the European Union. We know that we need to be all the 27 now, thanks to Brexit, to agree to change it. But it will never be more integrated. And if it's more integrated, it will be by destroying our social model in the French. Because we are sure that since the French social model is very developed, it won't be accepted by other countries. So this is obviously a real choice that the French voters will have in 2 weeks. And I hope that they will make the good one.
I'd just like to put another question to Aurore. We've been talking quite a lot this morning about the catastrophic result in this first round for the Socialist Party, Armand getting marginally above 6%. But as a former member of the Republican Party, I'm interested in what you think about the performance of it, given the fact that we've had 5 years of pretty unremarkable government from François Hollande, the fortunes of the socialists plummeting, and the Republicans not being able to benefit from it, not being able to use the disastrous performance of the Socialist Party. Is this the end of the Republican Party, do you think? Are we entering a new politics in France? And if so, how do you see the contours of future French politics?
Well, first, regarding the results of the Republican Party, I think it's mainly because of their candidate. It's because of François Fillon and the choice he made to maintain his candidacy towards the affairs, etc. But regarding the future of the parties, I think the Socialist Party and the Republican parties are no longer the divide we have to have in France. They are no longer relevant in France. And I think that's the message, the clear message that French people just told us yesterday. It's no longer right versus left. And I hope that they will understand this message. I'm not sure they will, but I hope they will.
All right, Aurore Berger from Emmanuel Macron's En Marche, and Émeric from the National Front. Sorry.
Hello.
Yes, thank you. Would you guys like to join us as we look at the European paper's reaction to the French election? Haxi Myers-Belk going to take us through it, and you're beginning with some German reaction.
I am indeed. So let's kick off with the Süddeutsche Zeitung. It's pretty clear whose side they're on. That headline reads, France now has the choice between optimism and anger. The optimism of Macron's pro-European project and the anger of Le Pen's closed borders. For Italian paper La Corriere della Sera, meanwhile, the battle is now on between Macron and Le Pen. The pro-Europe candidates pledges to turn the page, that's Macron, while Le Pen of the far right says it's time for the people to be free, we see on that front page. As for Belgian paper Le Soir, centrist independent Macron is en marche vers l'Élysée. He's headed straight for the Élysée Palace, and that's a rather clever reference, of course, to Macron's En Marche movement, which translates roughly as forward.
And the British press, we're seeing also a reaction this after their own populist movement, which led to Britain, of course, voting to leave the EU or Brexit.
They are. So centre-right daily The Times is calling this nothing less than a new French revolution, with mutinous voters humiliating the country's two established parties, the ruling socialists, of course, and the conservative Républicains. The result heralds the end of 6 decades of rule by those two traditional blocs, we read here. French voters are now faced with a stark choice. On one hand, there's Le Pen and her ultra-protectionist anti-EU manifesto, and Macron's promise to adapt France to a globalised world. Left-wing British Daily is a little less grandiose in its phrasing. The post-war parties have been humbled, we read here, and the country has been set on a new course either way. The Guardian, of course, urging France to do what it did back in 2002 and to rally to defeat the far-right candidate on the 7th of May.
And meanwhile, what are the papers back here in France saying?
So let's take a look at a Catholic daily La Croix. Centrist independent candidate Macron and far-right leader Marine Le Pen are staring out at us. The headline, Macron-Le Pen, une nouvelle donne, a new state of play. Paris daily Le Parisien, meanwhile, is leading with the headline, the Macron sensation. He's looking rather defiant in the photo they've chosen. We're reminded that Macron is certainly the favourite to become the next president of France, but that his co-finalist Le Pen, who won 22.3% of the vote, has succeeded in making the National Front a major political force in France. L'Opinion, meanwhile, has opted for Macron headed to the Élysée Palace, alongside a Disney-themed cartoon where Macron is transformed into the victorious Arthur as he pulls the gleaming sword from the stone. His adversaries surrounding him. It was by no means a simple election, I think is the message, but France does now have a new king.
Now, Emmanuel Macron likes to say he's neither liberal nor conservative. How is the liberal press here in France treating him?
So let's take a look at the front page of left-wing daily Libération today. There's that imposing picture of Macron with the headline, à une marche, just a step away. And just underneath, we read that calls to block Macron's far-right rival Le Pen are mounting.
Now, Haxi, we also want to look at the rise of Marine Le Pen. Fascinating, worried lots of political commentators, not just in France, but in the US too.
Yeah, so the first line of this analysis piece in the New York Times today says it all, really. Not since World War II has the anti-immigrant far-right been closer to gaining power in France. We go on to read that that's so alarming that by 8:01 p.m. French time yesterday on Sunday, as soon as the preliminary results were announced, virtually all of her major opponents called for her defeat. And if we move on now to the Washington Post, they've published a rather amazing graphic that shows just how unprecedented May's runoff is. It reminds us that since the Fifth Republic moved to a direct popular vote in 1965, the French presidency has been won by a candidate representing either the major centre-right political parties or the major centre-left political parties. Of course, no chance of that this year.
And back here in France, we'll look at the conservative papers.
Yes, so the front page of today's Le Figaro sums up what a lot of conservatives and a lot of conservative commentators are talking about today. La droite KO, the right knocked to the floor or the right knocked to its knees. In the editorial just below, headlined A Huge Waste, we read that, quote, the unthinkable has happened. The right that for 5 years has consistently beaten the ruling socialists in the polls, the right whose ideas have never been so popular across the country, has now been eliminated from the presidential race.
All right, Haxi Myers-Belkin with the press review. I'd also like to thank our guest, Amérique Merlot, once again, Regional Councillor for the National Front. Thank you for joining us. Aurore Berger from Emmanuel Macron's En Marche movement. And once again, a reminder of our top story here on France 24. Emmanuel Macron, a relative newcomer, winning round 1 of the French election, as well as Marine Le Pen. They'll face off in a fortnight in round 2. We'll bring more continuing coverage of the French election here on France 24.